All right. Let's see. Boy, I tell you, sometimes I dive in here a little bit late. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sander. Uh, this is one of them burnout days where you got to get in there and get it done. It seems to be happening every week now. Changing things up, working on, because, hey, look, this is that week where everybody's got the little munchkin going back to school, the little rugrat going back to school. So, you know, this is that turning point. I think this is probably a lot harder to adjust to adapt to than I think daylight savings time. And hold on a second. There we go. Ripped and ready to go. So I appreciate you guys coming in. Today we're going to just dive straight on into it with the skipping the pleasantry for the most, because we're 8 minutes behind on getting in here on the main topic. So we're talking about this age gap. I've talked about it a few times before on the show, but what we talked about on the show before was whether or not it was a good or bad thing for the guys to do, and whether or not society, or more than likely women, actually cared why it was being done. But now we're just really getting into why does it freak people out so much? What is the deal with the difference in ages in social interactions? And it actually plays to the tune of what we were talking about on Monday and Tuesday of this week, when we were asking Mr. Pibbs about the morals and ethics, and we started getting down to the nitty gritty of social constructs and how certain things can be socially acceptable in some areas, things would be socially unacceptable in other areas. Now, the thing about age gaps is that in the social dating atmosphere, you have smaller gaps in dating where older people date younger people and vice versa. The younger you are, the smaller that gap is. So I've explained this on the show before, where typically most adults draw that line at the whatever the legal age is in whatever country. And we also come to understand that while we typically draw that line, there are some that draw an even shorter line and say, well, they've got to at least be drinking age, because you're probably going to either meet that person in an atmosphere where alcohol is consumed, or you're going to bring that person into an atmosphere where alcohol is consumed. So you would prefer to date somebody that is at least of drinking age. Now, these particular concepts dictates the limitations of how young a person is when you actually date them. Now, the social atmosphere that we're in here in the United States is that typically the women freak out more than the men about how young is too young, because men are going to draw the line at like 22. Most of them are looking at that sweet number of 24, and the women are going to demonize those numbers, because the men that are 40 are looking at 22. The men that are 35 or looking at 24, but the women that are in that range are going to make it seem like it's a bad thing, because that actually makes it harder for those women to compete, because the men are actually going to be more interested in the type of woman that is 10 to 15 years younger than the woman in their same age group. Now, we understand the concepts behind this because we've talked about it on the show quite a few times, but we ask ourselves, well, what about this is wrong, outside of the fact that they just don't want the guys to really pick what they want. And when I started analyzing the situation and really digging deep into it, you look at it and you think about the hypergamy theory, where women force men to date down because, women are going to date up. They're not going to date a man that is on their level because they want to elevate their lifestyle by dating a man. So if you're dating a man to improve yourself, then a man that does not improve your standard of living is not worth your time, because you do not gain from being with this person, even though truthfully, a man that's on your level is a man that can provide for you the exact same things that you can provide for yourself. So when I started mentioning this to people, they started like jaw dropping. They're like, no, that's not the case. No, yeah, it really is. Women say that they don't want a man and they can do it all by themselves. I can do battle by myself, but you could do good by yourself as well. But you choose to have a partner that can have you or help you do good with less stress, with less, effort. You elect a man to be your man because he is able to provide for you to the magnitude that you were able to provide for yourself. And if you redirect your attention to something other than providing, like taking care of the family, then your standard of living is not going to diminish because you are with this guy. Now, there are some alpha boss ladies that are able to carry the torch in the household, which heavily encouraged. But you have to think about the fact that if she is able to bring it home, then she could have the stay-at-home husband and or boyfriend, and he could be the caregiver of the house, and the woman could be the breadwinner of the house. But not too many women are driven to say that they're going to be the 500 person, and they're going to bring back the hundreds of thousands that's going to stay at home and not work. When you typically talk to women, the women want a man that is going to make more money than her. So if that's the expectation, then you're looking at the fact that the man cannot elect to not be financially stable enough to provide for her, because she's not going to accept that. Now, with that hypergamy theory, the men are limited to what they are able to choose from, because a man is only going to be judged as valuable based on the man's wealth. So if he brings in enough money, then he can provide her with the standard of living that she would prefer to live on, which also means that if he makes enough money, then she will choose him. He can't be broke. He can't be financially challenged. He can't have more bills than he has money. And a woman is going to say, oh, I'll pay for that. But on the other foot, the men could find a woman that is broke, living on a park bench, living in her mother's basement, with more debt than she has resources. And the man who is attracted to that woman would voluntarily take on this burden to get the woman. So when we're looking at the age gap, and we're looking at the difference in the social constructs of age gap dating, where men are trying to date women that are stress-free or with less stress than the middle-aged women, because you have to understand that you are more willing to cooperate and compromise 4 months ago. You are more willing to compromise and work with your partner. The first, 3, maybe 4 relationships that you get into, you're more willing to cooperate and compromise, put effort into that person. The more you value, the less people you've dated is going to be the more you value. So the less hookups you have, the more uh, uh, or less expectations you have. Now, women are going to say that, oh, men are dating the younger women because uh, uh, the women have lower expectations and the men don't have to try as hard. Well, in a way, that is true. But in a way, it gives us a clean slate because I've seen recently, where some women are saying, well, you want someone that knows what they're doing. They should compare it. This lady compared guys dating women with experience versus dating women without experience, such as you wouldn't want to have a doctor who's only done one surgery. You want someone that knows what they're doing. Now, she's justifying the fact that, a woman can have a body count of 100 or 1,000 because if she knows what she's doing, then she knows how to please you. But you have to understand that while men have a lot of reasons why body count is a problem, one of the things about being a seasoned veteran at something is that you're not willing to learn how to do it differently. And that's going to be one of the things that men are really complaining about the most, is that when a specific man that wants it done a certain, he's already got the obligation to perform certain tasks and obligations to the benefit of the woman the way the woman wants it to be done. So it's not uniform if the man has expectations that he wants to be done and the woman is not willing to do it because he's already electing to do things a certain way to satisfy the woman. So that means that reciprocation requires the woman to do the exact same thing that she is expecting from her boyfriend or her husband. So since that concept isn't uniform, we're now looking at the fact that a man who is willing to do certain things for his woman that he otherwise would not have done had it not been a request of her, since she's already got that man, that is 50% of the compromise. The other 50% of the compromise is she would have the same attitude and ability to accomplish the same. So, wants a woman to do something and a woman is not willing to do that, you are now in a problematic scenario because the man who is supposed to be flexible with his expectations, he's supposed to understand, he's supposed to accept the woman as she is, and all of this other bullshit that is revolving around excuses that prevents you from doing what you were told to do. Now, I'm going to tell you that the hardest part about that, and God, I see you came in here, but the concepts that are really hard about this is that if you really understand that in order for a person to tell you what they want, in order for you to really provide a person with the things that that person needs, without you already learning from that person, from them actually telling you that at least once. And there's Lauren asking us what's going on here. Well, we are actually going into a pretty deep concept about the true dynamic of age gaps. So, I mean, if you've got your own personal insights on this particular dynamic, then Lauren, you can go ahead and throw your 2 cents in here. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, we still have the option to slide you guys in on the let's see, here we go. Multiple individuals diving into the podcast. I gotta start making sure that I get that up there. Sometimes I throw it in there. Sometimes I forget to throw it in there because it's supposed to always be in there. It's one of those things. But a lot like Lauren, we typically have when we talking about women don't typically take a lot of shots at us. And I mean, I like for to have open forum, open discussions to people who may not agree with what I have to say. And I really encourage them to come in and put their 2 cents in, because if they are going to put their 2 cents in, then we would be able to have us a real discussion on this live podcast, where for those of you that are coming in on YouTube and or TikTok, you guys can click the mic and approve the mic and approve the camera is going in there. I see Clips XF is here. This typically happens. This is one of those topics where you're going to dive in, buddy. It's good to see you. And for those that are going to come in, you got to remember that you're over the age of 18. So if you are not over the age of 18, well, you are more than welcome to listen to the podcast. You will only get up onto the show if you are over the age of 18. So I've got to see that you're an adult. I know that there's been some entertainment from some of you guys that have been trying to see if you can get over on the podcast and trick us into putting you up onto the podcast when you're not over the age of 18. Now, I just put you up there for the sake of, because I could clearly observe from the video footage whether or not you are an adult, but it's whatever. It's a good idea here. So Lauren, you're asking, are we pro age gap or against age gap? That is the question. Some are. It really depends, because when it comes down to the concept of women, there are women that are pro age gap. We've actually shown statistics where women have been willing to date men older than them for as much as 60 years older than them without a problem. But then we also have those women that will frown upon men for deciding to date down when men stop typically at the age range of about 22 to 24 years of age. Not very many of them are going after 18. They typically stop around 22 to 24 years of age. They prefer to have them old enough to go to the club and grab some drinks with them and not have to worry about catching a case. Now, a lot of them whose morals and ethics are drawn at the lines of the law, they may be willing to go so far as to grab them on their 18th birthday, fresh out of high school graduation, and say that's about as low as they'll go. But I mean, you're not really looking at grown men that are on a regular basis going after anyone that is not of legal age. But when we start talking about the age gap where older men are dating younger women, the perception of the woman is going to be that men are ideally supposed to be going after somebody in middle school, when that is by far not the case. And they try to shame men for dating younger women by seeming like we're picking up kids out of high school, and that's not a thing. But there are going to be significant age gaps. And the women that are going to seek older men are going to seek older men because the men are not going to be as financially stable until they're older. 20-year-old men and 30-year-old men are not as financially stable as 40 and 50-year-old men, because men don't start their share. Men don't really have their financial stability until they're about 55 or 65 years old, if they're ever going to get their financial stability. Because there are some financially challenged individuals that are financially challenged their whole lives. But individuals that were born into a financially challenged lifestyle are not going to be able to pull themselves out of that financially challenged lifestyle without a plethora of mistakes, unless they just so happen to know a few extra people that have a lot of money to help them boost themselves up, and they kind of hit it big early on. They're not necessarily going to be out of that financially challenged position until, in their 40s. Because when you're a young man at 18 to 25, you're pretty much typically chasing sex. You're not really thinking about, You make enough money to live, but you're not really thinking about building your wealth. We don't really have that many people that are teaching the next generation about financial success or gaining wealth or how to utilize your access to resources to better yourself. You typically are going to be making bad financial choices, like going out to the dating world and spending $200-300 a night, 3 nights a week, hooking up with girls, where you're basically spending almost $1,000 a weekend. Even on a low end, you're spending about $300 to $600 a weekend hanging out with girls, which means that you're working enough to bring in that kind of money so that you can hang out $100 on entertainment. Because in the Western society, men are rated at to be considered a good man and to be considered, the men are obligated to pay for a lot of stuff. We don't have very many scenarios where women are voluntarily insisting that the women pay for everything. So in order for a man to entertain himself with a woman, he's going to have to pay out a lot of money every week, every month. And they don't realize that, if I took that money and invested it somewhere, that I would have shit tons of money. And then by having that shit tons of money, the woman would actually be coming and looking at me because I'm already financially stable. We don't actually come across this plethora of knowledge until we're in our 30s. Then we start aiming to get there. And it typically takes 10 to 20 years to get there. And by the time we get there, we're about 40 or 50 years old. So women who want a financially stable man are going to a stable man, which is going to be a lot older. You're also going to women mature faster than men. So women are going to have their mindset wrapped around what needs to be done. I'm gonna get to it in just a second. They're gonna wrap their mind around what needs to be done at an earlier age. Guys are going to be a little bit childish, not even going to be behaving as grown adults until they're probably going to be closer to 30 years of age. And after they've made a plethora of mistakes, I've got to do collateral damage in order to get back up there. But women are going to be a little bit more focused on making those conscious choices and trying to get in there and get their success a little. And this doesn't mean that women cannot financial success, because they could be bosses by far and do it way better than men because they don't have the distractions. It's just the fact that when they start getting into the dating field, the women are not actually interested in settling down until they're in their 30s, and the men are not financially capable of settling down until they're in their 40s. So Lauren's question is, so what I'm hearing is men are irresponsible with money. No, what you're hearing is that men are not going to have that guidance, that good old boys apprenticeship style knowledge from birth. Most adults don't have it, women or men, they don't have it. And men have the obligation to have money, and men have the responsibility of providing that money to the women. So while women are also equally irresponsible with their money, they don't have the obligation to maintain money, because women are going to be looking for the kind of man to provide them with money. So while you're trying to point out that a man is by far irresponsible with money, no, the obligation of responsibility falls on the man. And while men and women alike at younger ages are irresponsible with their money, women are allowed to be irresponsible with their money because they are not required to be responsible. In a relationship, men are not dating women because women are responsible. They're dating women that are good partners. They're dating women that are good companions. They're dating women because of their attitude. In modern society, in the United States, the transactional relationships, typically men are funding women that are going to provide them with the sexual attention and emotional attention that they need on a transactional basis, because women are not willing to do anything beyond what they get paid for. They find it a burden. They find it to be oppressive to do the feminine role in any way, shape, or form. It's an insult for a woman to fill the feminine role. They must have the masculine role, but get the feminine benefits at the same time. because women are multifaceted. So the confusion comes in is that why do women want to be the masculine man role, but want to get the feminine benefit of, take care of me and fund my existence, and then expect the men to be more masculine than the women? Because that's going to have a testosterone clash, and it's really going to cause a little bit of an issue in the situation where you are looking at into how you doing, Red Void? I see you just jumped in there with the women that are going to be wanting those men to be overly masculine, and here we go. So you're saying I got like two different chats here because we have not merged all of the chats together, guys, so bear with me. I've got TikTok and Twitter on one side and Twitch and YouTube on the other side, and I got to flip back and forth between comment sections. So did you just get broken up with or something? Well, actually, no. Typically, it just so happens that if you pay attention to the podcast, which you can see the subscription button on the bottom left corner here, you can hit that subscription button. It'll take you straight to the YouTube podcast. You see that the topics of discussion for the podcast are listed up to 30 days in advance. And it just so happens that this was today's topic. So has nothing to do with someone being in their feelings or being sad or having to vent. That's typically a man-shaming way that a woman that doesn't want to admit or agree with the information that's being provided without actually providing any counter information to debunk the theory is typically what happens. So you believe that a man has to be in his feelings or sad or be dumped or something like that in order for somebody to come across a concept and say, hey, this is the way things are. And from the perspective of like, it's truth, it's statistics. And I can't say that for 20 years to research yourself and come to find out that the same concepts exist across the board. That if this wasn't just a bunch of single men that don't have girlfriends who did the research, and it's not a bunch of single men who can't get a girl who actually talk about the research. Women talk about this research as well. The fact is that it's truth. That where it comes from is that there is a lack of responsibility on both sides at a younger age, and it is truth that men do not have that expectation to bring in resources the way men have that expectation to bring in resources, and it is truth that men are not going to have that responsibility buckled down until they're in their middle ages, and women that want a responsible man are typically going to find a more responsible man. A 20-year-old that wants to be kept by a financially challenged man or a non-financially challenged man is probably going to find that man in his 40s. So she's going to be dating up by about 20 years. A woman that wants to get a man where she doesn't have to work, she's looking for a rich guy where she can get his inheritance. She doesn't have to deal with him for very long. Probably going to date a man 40 years older than her. We've shown you on this podcast statistically that an 18-year-old would date a 68-year-old without a problem. A 18-year-old would date a 72-year-old without a problem because they'll date as much as 60 years older than them. And I mean, nobody's dating a woman that is or a girl that is under the age of 18, but women are going to make it seem like that's the way things are. But why is it wrong if a man is going to date a 24-year-old if the 20-year-old is going to date the 45 or 50-year-old? Why is it wrong for the man to date the younger woman, but it's okay for the younger woman to date the older man? So Lauren says, I believe that a man with such toxic masculinity probably got his shit handed to him by a woman. Okay. So as I said, the man shaming is going to come out. So Lauren believes that a man is toxic with his masculinity. Now you got to remember that toxic masculinity is going to come from the females over assertion of authority to dominate a man in any situation, including this conversation, and that a man shit handed to him by a woman in order for a man to say, hey, we recognize that we have a requirement that we are required to fulfill in order for us to be considered worthy of a partner. So, Lauren, would you say that it is fair to say that, if you were picking a man, that he would have to have a job? I mean, we have to have an income. And while you answer that question, Lauren's going to say men groom women under 18 literally all the time. No, men do not groom women under the age of 18. I feel sorry for. So here is a little trivial scenario here. Have you been groomed by men before you were 18? Is that why you have that perspective? Because typically grown men are talking to grown women. We're not talking about the men that are on a registry. We're not talking about the men that beat on women. We're talking about good men that deserve a good woman, that put themselves in a position where they are qualifiable of the expectations of a woman by meeting her expectations of the requirement for financial resources and a positive attitude. And now we're saying that those men typically are going to find a more positive attitude from a woman that is going to be more of that man. That woman has not ran through the population, because typically women who are seasoned, who know what they want and know what they expect, are not willing to flex on their expectations, and they have no interest of meeting the expectations of a man, but they have the demand that a man is supposed to meet her expectations. Now, women are not taught over the years to be a partner to the man, and when a woman is told that half of being in a great relationship is not just having a man do what you want, it is you doing what he wants. And see, that other half is what women, feminist women that are toxic, don't want to hear, is that you have a man that'll do the best he can to give you everything that you're asking for. And that also means that if he says that he wants you to behave a certain way and do certain things that will make him happy, you have to do what he tells you to do to make him happy, the way he is doing what you want him to do to make you happy. That is uniform. Now you're going to say that, no, we shouldn't do what men tell us to do because that's toxic masculinity. That's oppressiveness, that's manipulation, that's grooming. No, it's a reasonable compromise, and 24-year-olds are able to make that reasonable compromise. But men are grooming those women because you don't want us to date somebody that is going to cooperate with us. You want us to submit to your authority as a middle-aged woman that has already tried and failed a number of times, where your shit probably got handed to you a couple dozen times, and now you're going to reciprocate by mistreating the men that are trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, where you have to be accepted for who you are, damage and all, mental and emotional damage and all, scars and battle wounds and 10 kids if necessary. You're supposed to accept you for who you are, but a man can't be broke and unemployed, and you say, I'm going to make this a great man. I'm going to get him. I'm going to take good care of him. I'm going to be made in order for you to say he's worth your time. So if you're not going to accept the man for who he is the day that you meet him and make him into what you want him to be, he has to accept you for who you are, and he's not allowed to mold you into what he wants you to be according to what you say that men mold women, that a man is not allowed to. So he's not going to get what he wants out of the deal, but you're going to get what you want out of the deal. Now make that make sense. How is that uniform? that your expectations overrules a man's expectations. Where see on this podcast, where a man that is not just bitching for the sake of bitching, where he's not just having it handed to him by some woman, man's talking about uniformity. The same thing, just similarly to the concept of women's false claim of equality. Because when a man is talking about uniformity, and I see your comment there, Lord, a man is talking about uniformity. We're talking about, hey, if it's expected to happen for you a certain way, then why is it not okay for it to happen the same way for the guys? We're not asking for favoritism. A guy is not saying, one of those podcasts that are not saying that a woman deserves to be under the foot and thumb of a man. A man is saying, hey, if you expect me to say and do the way you want me to say and do for your benefit, why is it not fair for me to equally say that you should say and do the way I want for my benefit? Because if I'm doing it for you the way you want it done, why are you not doing it for me the way I want it done? Why is it wrong when I have demands and expectations, but it's not wrong when you have demands and expectations? Now, I asked you, Lauren. Okay, so Lauren says, considering the state of our economy, yes, he would need to have a job. Simply live. Now, Lauren, since you say that a man is required to have a job simply to live, a woman is not required to have a job simply to live. Even in this economy, a man that is financially challenged, living from paycheck to paycheck, would not have a problem with taking on the financial burden of an unemployed woman with no inheritance and no financial background, no resources at all to contribute to the relationship, because a man is getting a partner out of this situation. So while she doesn't work, she doesn't provide financial stability to his scenario. He's not getting a dowry or anything like that. The family isn't paying him to take care of the kid or nothing like that. This is a grown woman. This is a situation where this man finds this girl. He likes her. She's hopefully has a positive attitude, and she's willing to cooperate with the man's goals of making money. Now, this man is then going to take on the financial responsibility of providing this woman with what she wants and what she needs. And all he's asking her to do is what he wants, and make sure that she focuses on his needs, so that he's capable of providing her with the things that she wants and the things that she needs. Now, that is not grooming. That is a compromise. And Lauren, you're going to say that that is what you would consider manipulation, toxic masculine manipulation. Now, my question to you, Lauren, why is it that you have the foundational expectation that a man must have a job, but a man does not have to have that same expectation? I can say, well, it's okay. You don't have to have a job. Now, while you think about that, and I have a second question for you, Lauren, because you say that in this economy that a man would need a job simply to live. Since that's your statement, Lauren, here's another concept. If it takes two people's income, or at least two incomes, whether it's one person working two jobs or two people working one job, why is it a man's responsibility to be the primary provider in a relationship if it requires two people to live in our current economy? And why is it that women who are more than capable of being financially successful, more successful than a man, why is it that a woman making 60 or 70,000 a year thinks that it's not a good thing for them to date a man that's making, say, 30,000 a year? money than you. Like, you're not going to date a guy. He's not considered on your level. He's not considered worth your time if you have more resources, more access to resources, or more capability of financial success than him. So why is it that a man is less valuable to you if he makes less money than you? Now, while Lauren starts trying to answer these questions, I'm going to go into saying, and I appreciate you guys coming in on YouTube and TikTok and Twitch sides. We got a lot of things going on here. Make sure that y'all like and subscribe and join the membership. Got to keep touching base. So over here, the Twitch side, because Mr. Red Void is there, Liberty Twitcher, Silly Emma. So I want to make sure that I show some love for you guys over on Twitch, because y'all definitely come through and make the show what it is. And moving forward, while Lauren tries to answer this question for herself so that we can kind of progress this conversation. And from what I see, yeah, we have the ability to throw you guys in. So if you are interested in real-time conversations, it looks like we have the opportunity to throw you up onto the screen. If you want to put your 2 cents, I'll do so. I can send you an invite to come in, and you can kind of make it make sense for me. But moving forward, since we understand that women have the expectation for men to be the breadwinner and be the contributor, the primary contributor into the relationship, and women are expected to be the helpers in the relationship, there isn't a weighted equal expectation between the two parties. Women's expectations are non-tangible. Men's, well, the expectation of women are non-tangible. So we have to pay attention to that. The expectation are non-tangible, and the expectations of men, where women want from men, are tangible expectations. And since they are tangible expectations, we have to understand that men are going to meet those expectations before they start attempting to try to find themselves a partner. So a man is not going to be sleeping under a cardboard box and then say, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to go date this chick that works on Wall Street. No. A man's going to be focusing on getting the shit together, trying to find a way to get out of the hole that he's in before he starts trying to look for somebody. Now, if a female that is in the same situation as him decides to provide him with some attention, he may entertain that scenario because they're both in the same status and the same situation. And to the best of his ability, he will look out for her to the best of his ability, which would make it easier for her to receive resources. So if they're both homeless, he'll provide her with food and more accessibly than what she would have been able to provide for herself. Now, that doesn't mean that she couldn't get food easier than him, because a woman sleeping on a sidewalk, all she has to do is smile at a man, and a man will take her off the side of the road and put her into a house. A man sitting on the sidewalk will be sitting on the sidewalk for the rest of his life. A woman is not going to take a man off the sidewalk and put her into his house. You are not going to see that Ken and Barbie scenario happen in reality. Women are not going to date men that don't have anything. But a man will date a woman that doesn't have anything and then buy her everything that she wants and needs more effectively than a refugee camp. So while we were talking on this concept where the women are going to say that it's okay for a woman to date an older man, and then the man shaming is going to come from that a man cannot date a younger woman. And when we talked about these concepts before on the show, we were talking about why the women are not doing it. They were not doing it because they want to control what the men choose. Because if I'm a middle-aged man and I'm required to date middle-aged women, I'm not allowed to date younger women. Then I have to choose from. So see, I have to. I don't choose to. I have to choose from whatever's there. To if you to the dealership, and they're limiting the cars that you can choose from based on your financial status. Anybody who's ever gone to a dealership, they ask you what your budget is, what your price range is. And instead of you walking through the lot looking at all of the cars and determining whether or not you can find somebody who can help you get one of these cars, they're going to find out what your price range is, and then they're going to walk you over to the section of cars that are inside of your budget. If you make a certain quantity of money a year, if you have no money to put down, you don't have a trade-in, you have reasonable to back credit, then they're going to bring you over to the section of cars and say, these are the only cars that you will qualify. You got to pick from these. Paint peeling. They're not visually attractive. They might run good. Some of them don't even run good. Some of them might look really good and run bad. Got thousands upon thousands of miles on them, hundreds of thousands of miles on them. And this is all you got to choose from. Scenario speaking, that's equivalent to what women are expecting men to do. They're going to say, well, guys, your price range is this much, so you are only able to select out of this category of middle-aged women. But the middle-aged women are, expecting men to accept them for who they are, flaws and all, which means that those middle-aged women are not required to carry themselves a certain way to appeal to a man. They're going to disregard their responsibility to be accepted by a man's standards by saying that they will just find a man with lower standards so that she can qualify for a lower requirement. That's what the women are going to say. The women are going to say, well, if one man doesn't, that's no. Men aren't going to say, well, if one woman choose me, another woman win. A man is going to say, well, in order for you to qualify to get a girl, bro, you got to have a good job. You want to start dating, but if you don't have a good job, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of a woman. And if you can't take care of a woman, you can't take care of a woman with children. And if you can't take care of a woman with children, you can't go and get you a woman, because if you get you a woman, there's a possibility that you'll get the woman and end up with children if she doesn't already have children. And if you can't afford to take care of 4 people, then why are you trying to get into a relationship? That's what men are going to tell other men. Women are going to tell other women, you don't need a man, you can do it by yourself. If he can't pay your bills, if he can't pay your telephone bill, if he can't pay your automobile, then y'all can't chill. Yeah, Beyonce. And you got to remember that nowhere in there are women telling other women that if you find a man that meets your expectations, that is capable of providing you with the financial stability that you're looking for, that you need to be a good partner to that man. They're not telling women that. They need to, and you need to motivate that man and inspire that man and aid that man in being financially successful in a higher standard than what he was when you found him, so that since he's making more money, he can actually spend more of that money on you. They're not telling women that, but that's the truth. So since they're not telling women that, not only are you supposed to be getting somebody who at least can take care of your basic needs, that you have to invest in that man so that that man can increase his ability to acquire resources, so that he can then take that increased ability to provide resources and invest extra resources in you after he finished investing in the nest egg of you guys' retirement, that you put in so that you can get something out of it. Women are not telling women that. Women are not telling women to invest in their finished product. Women are saying, go get the finished product. Go find one that's already set. Go find one that's already made. Now, as a woman that is 20, 30 years old, they're going to go after the finished product. Finished product is 45, 55 years old. So if you're 24, you're going to be dating a 44-year-old man, 20 years age gap, because a finished product was 44. Now, because it's the woman dating up, it's acceptable. His age doesn't matter because he's got the wealth. Now, from the perspective of the woman dating an older man, by all means, girl, do you. They applaud women when women do things that women would believe is unacceptable for men to do. Women will applaud each other, and you go, girl, and feminine power for the behavior that women believe is unacceptable if men perform that behavior. But the double standard is so skewed that when a man recognizes it and calls it out and says, hey, if it's fucked up when I do it, why it's not fucked up when you do it? A woman is going to come back and say, oh, you're toxic masculinity because we just called you out on your bullshit. Well, what if we flip the script in the same scenario? All variables are the same, but instead the 44-year-old man is seeking a 24-year-old. And if the 44-year-old man is seeking a 24-year-old woman because he wants to have a woman that can bear children. The woman that's 45 can't bear children. So man decides, well, I want to have like 10 kids with my wife. Well, you're going to get a woman of legal age and you're going to have 10 kids. Then that means that you're going to have to get a woman that is young enough to have 10 kids in a lifetime. And at 1 kid per calendar year, you're typically expecting a woman to have 10 kids for you, to have 10 years from the time that you meet them and the time that they meet menopause. Well, if you want to have 10 kids and you're 44, you're not dating a 45-year-old because she's not going to have 10 kids. If she has one, you're lucky. If she's willing to even have one, because after a certain age, women are tired of children. They don't want to have children. So you have to also recognize that concept. But if the women are willing to have children, they're less likely to have children because their fertility diminishes rapidly because they're going to be at their prime in their early 20s, and by the time they get to 30, they're going to be on a rapid decline. So their fertility is going to be around about 50. The likelihood of them having children between 30 and 40 is less. You're going to have to try harder. It's going to turn into a job trying to produce these children. But at 20, at 18 and 20, the women are going to be more fertile and more capable of saying, oops, and dropping out a lot more kids. So if a man wants to have 10 kids, 5 kids, and he's financially capable of taking care of those 5 or 10 kids, then statistically speaking, she's going to have to be 5 or 10 years younger than menopausal ages. And since menopausal ages are going to be as low as 35 and as high as 45, 55, it depends on the woman. But that means that you're now grabbing a woman that's going to be 24, 27, and getting those 10 kids out of that woman between 24 and 27 and 34 and 37. But you, as a 44, going to be after a woman between 44 and 54, you're going to be getting a woman that is between 24 and 34, so that you can have those 10 years of kids, so that by the time you're 54, you've got 10 kids, where your oldest kid is 10, if you're having a kid every year. And the issue that we have there is that if a man wants to have a lot of children, and he's required to be monogamous, he has this woman that's going to tell him how many children he's allowed to have with her, and he's not allowed to get any more children from any other women. So now the women are controlling the man's ability to reproduce. The women are stifling a man's lineage. We've done historical reports on how men are able to produce 209 kids in 130 years if they have access to enough women. So a man can produce, historically, it's been proven that a man can produce 209 children in 130 years. You're looking at almost entire life. But if you're talking about from the age of reproduction between 16 and 18 years old, you're talking about approximately 100 years or 110 years. This man has been able to put out 209 kids. You're talking about a man putting up almost 10 kids a year. You're putting out 5 or 10 kids a year every year for your entire adulthood till you pass away. And if you're going to minimize that and say, well, he probably stopped putting out kids in his older years, that means that you were putting out 20 or 30 kids a year when you were in your 20s and 30s. That means that you were getting 20 or 30 women pregnant at a time. If you're looking at those numbers, Nick Cannon, he ain't got one woman at a time in a year. And when you recognize this, you recognize that the expectations that women are placing on men are highly illogical, because what they want and what they actually get are two different things. And what men want, men are not allowed to get, because women are going to put this stigma that it's wrong for men to get this. And this is why I ask women on a regular basis to make it make sense, because trying about certain concepts such as the age gap, and we try to have these open forum discussions with women regarding the complexities behind the age gap, and we try to find out, hey, why is it okay for you to have this standard and this expectation, but it's not okay for me to have this standard and this expectation? Women say, oh, you're not supposed to think about it, you're just supposed to do it. Because if you think about it, then you're misogynistic, you're insecure that some woman did you dirty back in the day. Now one of the things I kind of want to touch on, oh goodness, hold on a second, though. One of the things that I kind of want to touch on, and I find this to be hilarious. Yeah, there we go. Back on it. One of the things I want to touch on, and I find this hilarious, is that, women say that men are toxic, right? That men have this male toxic masculinity thing going on, right? And it is so hilarious that I hear that when women want to shame a man for a man's opinion by saying that a man is traumatized and or emotionally damaged from past events, when women would have been what was the cause of the man's past traumas. But women will not say that women are toxic, and women are not, in most situations, that are producing these allegedly insecure and traumatized men, that these women are not suitable for a good man. Women are not going to say that. Women are not going to admit that if this many men that are coming out of bad relationships with women are that traumatized that they are verbalizing this trauma that they are experiencing from the women, that there is an error of toxicity from women in the dating pool that is negatively impacting men. And if men are doing a call to action to say, hey, we should avoid these toxic women so that we do not get traumatized by these toxic women, we come to find that a toxic woman will jump up and say there's something wrong with the men who are voicing their opinions about the fact that toxic women exist. Can you make that make sense for me? Ma'am, if you are part of the problem, I could see why you would protest the fact that I'm calling out the fact that your behavior is a problem. And Lauren went cold, y'all. I guess her phone died, but she is not trying to get in here and relive the fact that there is a common issue. So while we're talking about this age gap, and we're talking about how this age gap can and does negatively impact both sides, from the perspective that men are mistreated for dating younger women, and women, the feminist women, claim that the women are being groomed by a man because a man puts up a reasonable deal. Now, I got a question. Interesting question. If I offer you a standard of living that you are satisfied with, and all I ask you to do is follow my instructions so that you will know what to do to help me do better about getting you everything that you want. How is that manipulation? And then I got another question for you. Where is the grooming coming from? And that's a short question, because women say that older men groom younger women. In our modern society, the dating game is we have to impress you with our wealth in order for you to give us the time of day. So we have to show you that we have enough money to waste on you in order for us to be worthy of you seeing us a second, third, fifth, 10th time. So us wasting our money on you is grooming, right? And if that's the case, then guys, hey, we should probably stop spending money on the women. We should go out there and have them spend money on us, because if we're grooming women by wasting all of our resources on impressing her, then why are we wasting all of our money on them? Because they say that grooming them is wrong. So spending money on them is wrong if grooming them is what we're doing by wasting all of our income on entertaining this woman. But now, fair to say, if women are going out to have a good time, knowing that their good time is at the expense of the man, who is really manipulating and grooming who? Because you're not interested in a man, whether you have one or not, doesn't change the fact that you're out here hanging out with the girls. Guy comes up and he starts buying stuff for you, and you're going to let him do it because, woo, you're an attractive woman and you're enjoying the pleasures of life, and he's here. And while he's here, as long as he's paying, it's okay. How is that not wrong? How is that mindset not wrong? Well, if he chose to pay, it's on him. All right. Well, if that's the mentality, then ma'am, if she chose to date a man that offered to pay for her standard of living, that's on her. It's not grooming. Grooming is when you are spending a bunch of time feeding into the emotional comfort of another person in order to gain the trust of that person, in order to convince that person to do things that that person would otherwise not do. That is grooming. when a man walks up to a woman in the streets or at a grocery store, in a club or a bar or whatever, and they say, well, hey, you know, you're cute. I want you to be a part of my operation for the remainder of your time. I will give you whatever you need. How is that grooming? The proposition, it's not grooming. I mean, you got to understand there's no manipulation there either, because a man is actually offering you a certain standard. It's just like saying, hey, I got this job that I think that you would be good at. How would you feel about performing that job for me for the remainder of your time? That is not grooming. That's a proposition. That's a proposal. Okay. Now, if that's a proposal and you look at what's on the table, what's being offered, you're like, oh, okay. So, I get an elevated standard of living. I've got a retirement fund. And if the situation doesn't work, we get a divorce. I get a pension on a divorce. So now you're looking at all the stuff you get on the back end. If the situation doesn't go well, like you're weighing your options. You're like, you know what? Yes, I'll sign up for this. Where is the grooming? You have to agree to it. There is no grooming. But if you're going to say that men groom women, and then you would be fair to say that if men are going to groom women, men are going to teach women, then that means that a man is going to want a woman that can be taught. Men are going to want a woman that can be groomed, since you're going to say that, men are grooming women. They're not grooming children. They're grooming grown women, because we're talking about 24-year-olds. We're talking about you 24, you've been an adult for 6 years, so there isn't much manipulation to be put there, because you've had your entire childhood, and then now you have your adulthood, that you've been an adult for 6 years, and now a man says you are perfect for my operation. But we're going to say that men are going to groom younger women. Okay, fine. Well, if a man is going to groom younger women, the same way your boss is going to groom you to do this damn job, they call that the training phase. You want this job. You don't really know what to do to get this job and to keep this job, but you're willing to do whatever your employer tells you to do so that you can keep this job. It's a good paying job. You're going to allow your boss to groom you to work on this job. Now, if you're willing to work for a man on a 9 to 5 and do what you're told and learn from that man on that job so that he can give you money by the hour that cover your standard of living, and because he's giving you a limited quantity of money by the hour, that you're willing to work extra hours in order to get extra money from that man, why is it wrong for you to do what you're told from the man that is paying for your entire standard of living, where you don't have to work, you just have to follow instructions so that you can help him make more money for you to spend? Make it make sense, ma'am. Now, we got a lot of shorts that's going to be going up. Red, when you go to the show, when you go to the channel, you're going to see like 6 weeks of videos scheduled to be released. Because when we did this moral and ethical thing with Mr. Pibbs earlier this week, there were so many questions that came out that had some bullshit ass answers on this podcast. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to take each one of these and make a short out of it, a 1 to 3 minute. Actually, right now, I'm doing 3-minute videos on it, because I have to put up the explanation in there somewhere. I can't just throw up the 1-minute question. I got to put up a 1.5-minute response and then a 30-second rebuttal to that response. So you got like little 3-minute trailers up there, highlight videos of this past week's show if you missed it. So go back and see a few of those highlights as they run through, because they're releasing. We changed our distribution rate because, I mean, everybody went back to school. So, you know, we don't got as many people on YouTube watching the platform as they used to. So, and that's across the board, because we watch the algorithm of all of our competitors that are in the same niche of talk show style podcast, talking about some of the same topics that we're talking about. And we come to find out that, yeah, everybody's taking a massive dip this past 2 weeks. So we went from releasing 8 videos a day to releasing 4 videos a day. And then after this week, we start releasing 2 videos a day so that we can make sure that all of our videos get viewed. Now, you're able to see those videos on a regular basis and get to see some of those highlighted scenarios where, like, I was asking these same conceptual questions and I was digging deep into the what ifs and the whys in these concepts. And the way it turned out, there were not enough situations where the person was making sense. And that's one of the reasons why I typically insist, or not insist, but actually encourage that. No, I actually insist. I don't want to misguide the fact. I actually insist that the ladies make it make sense, because when we start talking about social inequality, it is a 2-party scenario for the inequality to occur, because one person has to do it and the other person has to allow it to happen. So, the same way when the women say that the men are grooming the women, that's a 2-party engagement. In order for the woman to be groomed by the man, she has to allow the man to groom her. In order for her to be taught what to do, she has to be allowed to be taught by it. And see that the toxicity of some of the feminist women is that they're going to change the conceptual definition of a behavior pattern to make it seem wrong, so that men are deterred from doing it. And women are going to object to being done. Women are not required to be partners, because being a partner to a man is considered oppressive. We've talked about that quite a few times on the show tonight. Women are not going to allow a man to teach her, because that's considered grooming. Women have a standard that men have to meet the financial expectations of the woman, as Lauren has stated on the show today in the comment section. But women are not required to provide. That's the man's job. Now, if a man is going to provide for the woman, why is the woman not going to follow instructions? Now, I had a question and a conversation with somebody. So I'm gonna explain to you the conversation that I had, and then I'm gonna ask you the question that I asked him. I was talking to a guy where a guy was trying to lead me to the understanding that women and men are supposed to be equal, and I'm like, it's not possible. And he was explaining about how, you know, the woman was made from the rib of the guy, and, you know, this kind of biblical sense. And I said, okay, well, if the entirety of the woman comes from a percentage of a man, then wouldn't that technically make the woman a percentage of the man? Women are going to say that's a misogynistic expectation to have, but no, we're just talking about math here. If 100% of the man is going to lose, say 20% of that man to make 100% of the woman, wouldn't that woman be, by definition, 20% of the man? Do the math. Now, keep it flowing. The man that I was talking to claimed that, you know, women are supposed to be equal to men. And I said, okay, from an egalitarian scenario, a woman is supposed to be on an equal footing to a man when the woman is providing the same quantity of resources into the relationship as the man. So the woman would earn the same quantity of authority in a relationship as the man, because half of the relationship's resources is coming from the woman, from the uniformed expectation that you pay the cost to be the boss, right? Now we understand that women are choosing to get occupations that are typically less profitable than some of the career choices that men are choosing. And this is ultimately leading the genders to have a 25 cents per hour wage difference in career choice. So typically women make less than men, not because there is a wage gap in this country, but because women choose jobs that don't pay as well. Now, I brought this up before, that a woman can work in a hospital as a nurse and make the same amount of money as the shift manager at a McDonald's. She can go to college for 2 to 4 years to get that degree to go to work at the hospital, and now she's got $50,000 of debt from going to college. He could have got that job as a dropout, started as a janitor, worked his way up in the company, and now he's a manager. And he's making the same amount of money as her. Fast food restaurants paying working wage. Working wage is almost $1,300 to $1,400 a week. And actually, those numbers could have gone up this summer, where it's as much as $1,600 a week. Statistically, as of February of 2024, that working wage was between $66,000 and $75,000 a year. So if you're working at a local hospital and you're making $48,000 a year, you went to college to make half of working wage. Women that want to be teachers. Teachers are making $35,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year. We've seen this past year, about 12 or 13 months ago, where northern central states were making it mandatory that the minimum wage for a teacher be $50,000 a year. But go get you a job at a Waffle House and you're making $72,000 a year. So if she went to college to be a teacher, she's got this bachelor's degree in education, and she's making 50, and he dropped out of school back in 92, and he's working at a Waffle House, and he's making 74. He's making 20,000 or 24,000 a year more than her, but she's better than him because she went to college. She's better than him because she's got a degree, but she's going to date him because he's got more money than her. But because she believes that she's better than him, she's going to control what he can and cannot do with the money that he makes. That makes no sense. Now, in this discussion, I said, well, look, doesn't matter how smart she is or she's not. Doesn't matter how smart that he is or he's not. We're looking at the fact that in those scenarios where, regardless of if she has a job, she's dating a man that can take care of all of her financial responsibilities. She's not bringing in 50%. She's bringing in 0%, or maybe 10 or 20% because she's taking care of herself some of the time. But the rest of the time, you're taking care of her. She's benefiting from your house, your transportation. You're paying for most of the stuff that she wants, and whatever you don't have money to pay for, she pays for herself. But you're taking care of you and you're taking care of her, right? Now, I asked, is she equal in that scenario? Now, the guy that I was talking to said, yeah, she should be equal. And I said, no, that's impossible. And he said, why not? Now, I'm going to explain to you why this scenario is impossible. You, as a parent, have kids. Doesn't matter. 1 kid, 5 kids, doesn't matter. Are you equal to your children? Most people are going to say no. An adult is not equal to a child. Okay, why not? The response to that is going to more than likely be because the child is a dependent. You are taking care of the child. You are teaching the child. You are molding the child into being better based on your expectations of what better is, comparison to what the child currently is. And this is going to be the expectation until the child is self-sustainable and potentially moves away. Now, the child can gain authority. The child can gain equal footing when the child is able to maintain or provide in that family atmosphere more than or equal to the parent of the household, right? You pay the cost to be the boss. Said that earlier. Now, exactly the reason why a child is not equal to an adult is exactly the same reason why a girlfriend dependent is not equal to her primary source of income, the man. The authority is going to be in the person that is paying 100% of the cost of this relationship. There isn't going to be a balance there. She's going to have expectations to receive money. He's going to have expectations that she does stuff to get that money. And he's going to dictate what that stuff is. And that stuff is going to exceed the expectations of providing sex. So when we're looking at how a woman is going to be capable of doing and performing certain tasks to aid the man as a helper, because that was the other thing that we talked about was, from this biblical expectation that God made women to be helpers of men. Well, if a woman is a helper to a man, then a woman is an assistant. And an assistant is not on an equal footing as the boss. The assistant assists the leader. They're not on the same footing. We had that conversation, but then we also had the other conversation is that if this person, this adult is your dependent, because you guys hooked up, you guys are dating now, and you are their source of the standard of living that they have. Girlfriend technically works for you because she's going to whatever you need her to do, cook, clean, take the car to the shop, take care of the kids, bring them to the daycare center, take care of the dogs, mow the lawn, whatever the hell she's doing in your life to take the stress off of your plate. She's doing that in exchange for you paying for her standard of living. So that is her job, to do the things that you need her to do so that you can provide for her the things that she wants you to provide her. So you guys aren't going to be equal because you have to dictate terms. Now, women can cut off and say, well, you're not going to get sex. I'm not going to give you the emotional stability that you need. Fine. Guy can say, well, you're not sleeping in the house. You're going to stay in a driveway until you get your shit together, change your attitude and change your behavior. The dynamic is not going to be balanced. Where is equal authority in there? And then here's another scenario. Every man that works. Here's a situation that I think is very, very interesting for us men to understand. We work, and it's fair to say that anybody who has a job dictates what happens with their money. First person accountability. Now, why is it fair to say that a woman can control what you do with your money, but you can't control what she does with hers? Now, if a man is going to be the breadwinner and a man is going to be contributing to 100% of her standard of living or 80% of her standard of living, then he is investing 80% of her life. And as a primary stakeholder of her life, this man should be able to dictate what happens with his money, where is his money going, and what he's getting out of his investment. Now, women are going to say, oh, that's misogynistic. But no, ladies, you don't invest in your man. And while you don't invest in your man, you also dictate terms. So how is it that you're not paying into the pot, but you're going to tell him what to do? And he is paying into the pot and he can't tell you what to do. Make that make sense. Why do you not have a financial obligation for authority, but he has a financial obligation to surrender authority? Make that make sense for me. And if we recognize that you do not have an obligation to contribute to the authority that you demand from your boyfriend or your husband, but he has the financial obligation to contribute to surrendering his authority to you, we can fairly say that this is not an equal expectation between the two people, right or wrong. And if you agree that that's not equal, that goes back to what I originally said. The two parties are not weighted equally. They can't be. But you can establish a level of balance. You can establish a level of uniformity. So whoever is in the authority position dictates terms, because the person in the authoritarian position is the person that's providing the largest majority of contributions into the relationship. The person that is providing the least quantity of contributions into the relationship does have the ability to voice their opinion, and their opinion will be taken under advisement. But we recognize that that particular person is still going to, more often than not, follow instructions from the leader that is going to lead them. So if you are going to follow instructions from the leader that is going to lead you, then you are doing what you're told. In order for you to know what they want, they have to tell you what they want, which means you have to listen to what you are told so that you can know what you are supposed to do in order to perform the job that is being handed to you in this relationship. Women are going to say that that's grooming. Well, it's actually learning. He's not actually grooming you. He's telling you these are the job requirements, and you are going to learn how to do them, or he's going to replace you with somebody who knows how to do them. Women say that men want women that are experienced. That's a lie. But if a man wants a woman to be experienced, in order for you to be experienced for the expectations of the man, some man somewhere would have had to teach you what men want in order for you to know what men want. So how young were you when you first learned how to do what men want to make men happy? Or did you just learn how to have sex with men to satisfy men's sexual desires? And if all you learned was how to satisfy men's sexual desires based on your encounters with men, all you're bringing to the table is sex, and men want more than sex because their value is higher these days, because sex is no longer the prize, the men are the prize. How are you going to be able to contribute to the expectations of a man if you do not recognize the expectations of a man? Now, a woman that says, well, if he doesn't want me, I'll go find another man that will. Why are you going to lower your value as a woman to be accepted by a man with lower standards, just so that you do not have to meet the standards of your original value? That's a very, very interesting concept. And now that I think about it, it's the first time that I've asked it. As a woman, you are valued by the man, and your worth is gauged by the man that you're with. So women are not going to ever consider themselves broke unless they're with a broke man. Men are considered broke even if they're with a woman. But if a woman has a man with money, she's not broke because her man will pay for her. So that means that you are valued by society, by the other women that you brag to, who you got this ring from your man and everything like that. You are valued by how successful your man is. And the more successful the man is, the more requirements the man is going to have for a wife, not a jump off, not a friends with benefits, not a fuck buddy, not some adult freelance worker off the street, not some swinger situation, not a random hookup, an actual girlfriend leading to a wife. These men are going to have more expectations. And if you're not willing to meet those expectations, you are really saying that you are not that valuable. So you are not going to meet the expectations of the kind of man that wants more from a woman so that he can provide more to the woman. You want to lower your value to go and accept a man that has lower standards so that you don't have to meet standards that you don't agree with. Likewise, if the shoe was on the other foot and you say, well, men are held to the expectations of financial success. Women's standards as to the quantity of income that a man is supposed to have in order to be considered worthy of her requires that man to make a certain quantity of money. If that man doesn't meet that quantity of money, since women are not going to lower their standards and expectations for the man's income, she will be accepted for who she is, but he will not be accepted for what he doesn't make. So that means that that man now has to lower his standards, lower his value, or not lower value, but recognize his value and go after a woman that has a lower standard. So a man that is making 50 or 60,000 a year is not going to be able to date a woman that is looking for a man that makes over 100,000 a year. So he would have to go and find the type of woman that is willing to date a man that makes less than 100,000 a year. That way, he would be able to find a more effective companion. But the standards of a woman that is making 40 or 50,000 a year, or 50 or 60,000 a year, would still have to meet the expectations of the man in order for that man to be satisfied, in order for that man to be happy. If a woman is going to say that a man's happiness is not valuable, and then the woman is going to turn around and say, but her happiness is important. Well, his happiness is equally important. And if you don't know what your man needs to be happy, if you don't know what he wants to be happy, then how are you going to be able to make that man happy? Besides giving him sex and probably food, what else is there for you to do to satisfy this man? And if you don't have the answer to that question, then you have a man that you are not doing anything for, or you're not doing enough for. And he is actually going undone while he's giving you primarily everything that you expect him to give you based on the income that he has that you accepted when you started dating the man. So this is these are the concepts that we have, and like Lauren come to understand on today's podcast that yeah, this isn't a man that's been got by some woman, or got beat down or tossed aside or whatever by some woman. This is a situation where we're just calling it like it is. We're crunching numbers and then making it make sense because the statistical data isn't balanced on both sides. It is subjectively favoring one particular party and subjectively not favoring another. And when we talk about that, you know, the women come to arms, and I encourage it. Come to arms and accept the challenge of making it make sense to me as to why you think it's okay if you do it, but you don't think that it's okay if we do the exact same thing. Take here in the United States, the men have this soft guy era 2024, where men are willing to allow the women to have the authoritative role if the women are going to take the financial responsibility of the authoritative role. And men are starting to talk like women, where they're saying, oh no, you've got to know that I need money and send me money without me having to ask for it. And if you call me and ask me how I'm doing and I tell you I'm shopping, you're supposed to pay the whole bill. And all of this, the things that women say. And women are offended by that because they believe that they should not be talked to this way by men, because men are supposed to be the providers, not the women. But women don't recognize that when you fought for liberation, you fought from liberation. You fought for more responsibility. You were liberated from being restricted to only having the obligations around the household to having the freedom of having all of the responsibilities that men have. And since you have all of the responsibilities that men have, then you have the same responsibility to pay for a man and take care of a man and provide everything that a man needs, the same way a man has the obligation to do that for you. And since women's liberation, equality, allegedly, requires that whoever pays the cost be the boss. So if the women have the ability to go to work and work for Morgan and Morgan or Culpeper and Curlin and come back and bring back that $70,000 a year income and support the stay-at-home dad who's going to cook and clean and take care of the children and bring them to school and get the car fixed and make sure that the bills get paid and make sure that his wife's uniform is ironed and make sure that the groceries are brought back to the house and all of the stuff that a man would need a woman to do, that this man is going to do it because a woman has got the job and he's staying at the house, not working. Then, hey, that's the case. Yeah, you can dictate terms. But if you're going to be the person that's going to be sitting on a couch watching Bad Girls Club and the Housewives of LA and eating your Doritos, and you want your hair and nails done, and the man is going to be taking care of everything that you need, and he's got to buy you a Bentley S-Class with the third row seats so that you can put all your friends in it while you're driving around, and he's got to put the gas in the car. You are living a life with no responsibility, no obligations, and no consideration for your partner. You're not providing anything to your spouse, and you are not trying to contribute to the household in a positive fashion so that the household can maintain its stability. You are willing to poke a hole in the ship and let it sink, and you are not willing to bail out any of the water, but you want to get in the boat and go on a ride with us. No. Like, I'm not even going to ask you to make that make sense. I'm just going to tell you no. And this is the reason why it doesn't make sense. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So if you're not aiding me in my success, you are investing in my failure. And when men recognize this, men start saying, well, you know what? We're going to put our foot down and we're not going to let this shit keep happening. We're going to actually start doing some stuff differently. We're going to hold ourselves to our non-negotiable expectations for behavior. And we're going to expect women to perform. And if they don't perform, then we're going to get rid of them and go get somebody who can perform. So if you're not performing at 40 years old, we're going to trade you in for your 20-year-old daughter because she'll perform. It is what it is. So I appreciate you guys coming into the podcast. For those of you that dove in late today, I want you guys to understand that we are typically live 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific. We actually started the podcast about an hour 38 minutes ago. We started a little bit late, so we carried it over a little bit late because we started it a little bit late. I know, Rev Void, you like that over there in Romania because we're catching you at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So I was glad to accommodate you, buddy. We had some technical issues starting up late today, but we typically start at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific on a regular basis. So stay tuned for that. We are going to be here tomorrow with some very interesting concepts because tomorrow's Saturday. So I want you guys to stay tuned for that. Make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that you hit the follow button if you're on Twitch, Twitter, or TikTok. We're trying to meet these goals to get ourselves up to the stream key that we need in order to merge everybody's comments together, because that would make things a lot easier for us if everybody's comments were merged together. I also wouldn't have to stream off of 2 different platforms, which is bulking down my limited capacity for RAM on my really small Lenovo computer. So, help me help you get a better quality podcast. Likewise, until tomorrow, hopefully you guys come through and come and take a look at some of the other things that we're going to be talking about, because the podcast is getting more interesting coming soon. I've got a lot more topics coming out that are, like I said, stretched out as far as I do believe October 3rd right now. I'm getting the rest of the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday concepts in this weekend. covering the remainder of the month, so that whatever you guys want to look at, if you've followed us on the YouTube channel, you can go to our channel and you can see at least the next 14 days worth of shows that are coming up, if not the whole month. And you will be able to see the entire lineup and determine which shows you're guaranteedly going to show up with versus which shows you might decide that, you can go and catch up on your Netflix series and maintain some other stuff. I encourage you to come to all of the podcasts, come to learn stuff, ask questions. If you have some concepts that you would like for us to talk about on the podcast, by all means, you can go ahead and send me that information, and I can take a look at your topics of inquiry, and I can go ahead and do some research and come back to you and give you some insight. We have open forum communication. If you have the capability of streaming, then by all means, I can send you a link to stream, and you guys can get on here and stream with us live on the podcast and somewhat co-host a show with me. We can sit here and go back and forth with it. I know y'all seen me with Mr. Pibbs on the show quite a few times. So, yeah, we definitely encourage you guys to get in here and get involved. With that being said, oh goodness, that is the longest name I have seen in a while. I'm not even gonna try. But as long as the situation doesn't make sense, ladies, I'm gonna keep asking y'all to make it make sense. So, ladies, make it make sense. And while I sign off of TikTok today, I want to thank you guys that are on YouTube and Twitch, Twitter, and other platforms for hanging in there and showing us love and support that we've been getting over the years. I really appreciate you. Oh, not years, sorry, months, because we've almost completed our first full year. So over the months, we really appreciate you guys for showing us love all across the world. We really thank you guys. Just go take a look at our merchandise store. Go and take a look at the YouTube affiliate merchandise that we're starting to promote on the podcast. I'm actually tagging them now, so you start to see for, I think, 60 seconds per item. They're scrolling across the screen. So random things that I think are nifty that people would like to get. Or guys, since women like us, buying them stuff that you can get it for your girl and give it to them, because typically the economy revolves around spending money on women these days, because nobody does anything for men, and men are very practical about their spending. So I got stuff for us. I got stuff for them. I got stuff that you can get for them, because I know that we've got the holidays coming up. We've got Christmas coming up. So, I'm going to be throwing some stuff up there that will work for the upcoming holiday and Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Labor Day stuff is being posted on a lot of the shows right now, because Labor Day is coming up. And right after Labor Day, I do believe we have Veterans Day also coming up. And what we do on Labor Day, we do on Veterans Day, which is barbecue and have us a nice little cookout. So I got some stuff out there for that. And some everyday items here and there throughout the podcast. So make sure that you go and check on all of our shows to see all of the merchandise that we have up there for all of the highlighted episodes. You can actually go back and rewatch some of the other live podcasts that have already aired, at least going back the last 6 months. So that gives you some stuff to do until we come back to the show live tomorrow. So until tomorrow, I really appreciate you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And